All right. Good morning, Bears, and everyone else out there. Check one, check two. Hopefully, I'm coming in. Plenty to talk about today. It's always plenty to talk about. That's the best thing about this channel. It's turned out to be mostly about my favorite subjects: bears, beats, Babylon 5, and the Bible. And I've never even seen Babylon 5, but my friend Chad, he tells me it's about like the Jews wandering just in space and interacting with all the other creatures, all the other different life forms with different relationships with the Creator. So it sounds fascinating, and I'll try to watch it sometime. But it goes along with all the other themes. Where should we start? Blaze is doing really good. It's clicking how important this is. I mean, even he knows in the back of his mind the importance of fostering community, because that's the only real insurance that you're going to have in life, and it's just nearly impossible in Babylon. It's funny, somebody commented, well, at least these guys aren't just squirting and running like most other people do. And I appreciate that comment, but the question is, like, where are we going to run? Are we going to run to the Civil Relief Agency? Do you think that there's some kind of employment or disability insurance available to people like Blaze and I? No, we're too employable. We're too able to just get on the dole. We don't have any inheritance coming. We don't have any relatives with basements that we can live out of that have great Wi-Fi, and we can live vicariously through other people. I know Blaze, he kind of, when he does pray, he prays to God that some kind of great socialist communist system will emerge from the chaos of Babylon, and he'll finally just get to stay in his little 2012er pod where he can stay 18 forever. That's what they all want. But at the end of the day, Blaze is smart enough. He knows community is something he must make himself worthy of. And he is. And it's all about, making a good show. So, we're doing good in that respect. Obviously, he just doesn't want to be put on the spot all the time about religious and philosophical issues. And I don't blame him. It was just important for me to just show him where I stand really early on. And he gets it now. And there was a lot of friction. But it's really coming together. Another thing I wanted to cover, well, this is the big subject, is the whole Qanon. Where did that come from? What are the origins of the Qanon phenomenon? And this goes back, to discuss this issue, we have to go back to the daddy issue, the original daddy issue we all have, which is, were we given a proper demonstration of what it is to be a man? And the sad truth is, most of us were not. We're all in this weird limbo, wondering and trying to be men and serve God and seek the kingdom. So the original daddy issue is just seeking this truth. This truth manifests itself in the age-old psychological story of Oedipus Rex, the club-footed king, who we all hear about all through the West growing up, and we're told this is very psychologically significant. And I've only recently come to learn that it actually is very much significant. The father of Oedipus, the king, he represents moral authority. The mother, she represents natural abundance. We are born into situations where we are placed, in the West at least, we are placed under positions of moral authority, whilst being in an environment where we have access to natural abundance. And it's every human's choice. At some point, he's going to have to make decisions between, do I follow the moral principle or do I seize the natural abundance? And inasmuch as people are conscious, every day is filled with this decision. Do I follow the path of the moral principle, or do I follow the path of least resistance to achieve what I consider to be the most naturally abundant outcome? When you choose natural abundance over authority, that's when you're killing the father and you're taking the mother for your own. And that's when the kingdom begins to collapse. Now, the story's only been slightly grappled through the years to where they've just gotten rid of calling it moral authority and say the father represents authority. We're all born into authority, which more or less represents will. And at some point we say, why should I obey your will? Why shouldn't my will be the final word on how much natural abundance I acquire? So this is, but it's still very relevant, whether it's authority or moral authority. Everybody can understand that they make these choices. I've been reading the great book Dionysus Rising by E. Michael Jones, and it's about this very subject. Only in the musical world, the transformation of music, where there is this kind of proper language of music, and every note has its place in this system. And every note that takes place, or a series of notes that we call a melody, it's its duty according to the system to resolve itself almost mathematically with the system of music. Like I said, I play music like a caveman. I'm like, put my hands here and strum, it sounds pretty sometimes. And in as much as it sounds pretty, I'm following these laws of music. Now, apparently what happened is during the Wagnerian time in Germany, this spiritual crisis of this Dionystic, wanting to choose this Dionistic way of life, which is this pursuit of the ultimate sexual pleasure, this Dionystic ritual of abandoning yourself to trying to achieve and possess the most natural abundance, which the expression of that would be the perfect ecstasy, orgasmic state. But it's an abandonment of the law and the proper resolution of all melodies. It's melodies that just keep building on forever. At least that's theoretically what this new type of music that Wagner was producing, which greatly influenced Nietzsche, and we all know how much Nietzsche has influenced this this pursuit, this actual desire to kill God and just live in this moral free universe. And so jazz music and rock and roll music has all developed from that. And it's all about this struggle between the father and the mother. When as Christians we understand that it's our duty to honor our father and mother. That's one of the basic precepts of our religion, is to honor the father and mother. That's honor the moral principle and the natural abundance. So what does this have to do with Q? Well, like I said, we all have daddy issues, but what I really should have said is, you only think you have daddy issues. Blaze and I, we have daddy issues. Our dad is the Q of Qanon. His name is Trent Galloway. His handle is Trent from Monroe. He's a boomer. He distributes his information via news shows. Like he's a regular caller on C-SPAN, the morning their morning show, the American Journal, something like that. It's their first show with that people can call in. And my dad calls in as Trent from Louisiana, and he gives his little spiels from wherever they come from. We'll talk about that. And it all sounds kind of bizarre, but it makes kind of sense. And but really what it is all now that the other Q-tards, they take that information and distribute it and decode it however they feel like they need to. And I think we can get to the bottom of the Q psychology, because it'll help that I was raised by Q himself. Um, my dad, like I said, at 18 years old, moved to Hollywood to be an actor, to seize that dream. He had his Christian upbringing, his Christian roots, his principles, but he wanted to be an artist. And, you know, we don't know how much of that decision to go to Hollywood was pure ego and how much he thought he was serving God by doing that. Anyway, he's a very talented man, and he got an agent. And I think what the story is, the family lore, he's never told it directly, is that he booked a photo shoot to be a model for Esquire magazine that was going to do like an exotic location shoot, and he was going to be one of the male models. And they had this party, Esquire did, this party in Hollywood that he went to like the weekend before they were all going to go do the photo shoot. And no one knows what happened at this party, but afterwards he was done with trying to be Hollywood, and he was on to, it's the usury, the pornography, and the pedophilia is the problem with this world. And I think he had met my mom by that point, and he said, we got to get married, we got to start having kids, and we got to start Bertaria, because that's our only hope, because this world of usury and pedophilia and pornography is no world I want to live in. So that's when he started going a little Q crazy, and his answer to that, his vision was, there's such a large group of basic Christians who have these basic principles against usury, against pedophilia, against pornography, and against just pure materialism. And he's like, for some reason, the will of these people is not being harnessed. There's no real Christian right. And there really wasn't in the late 70s. Religion was kept out of politics a lot more than it is today. And there was a much more even distribution of Christians on the right and left side. But in the early 80s, and really it was when Reagan directly addressed the Christians at the Republican National Convention, which my dad considers himself responsible for, because for 2 years prior to that, he had been writing letters to Pat Buchanan, to Pat Robertson, to Billy Graham, to Ronald Reagan, to the John Birch Society, to whoever would listen, because that's what the internet was back then. It was newsletters and actual letters. And, you know, I don't know how much credit to give him, but his vision of turning this massive amount of Christians, very watered down and very materialist Christians, but still basically holding hard to marriages between a man and woman. Abortion is wrong. Pornography is wrong. Pedophilia is wrong. Usury is wrong. The people who practice these things should not be the managerial elite of our culture. This has gotten into the mainstream. And so, like I said, he feels very responsible for it, but it was a long time coming to the mainstream, and the whole time my father floundered between taking us from church to church, from revival to revival, from different families who would take us in because they knew my dad wanted this Bertarian community, Christian community life so bad. And my dad did have a charisma. He was one of the best talkers you'll meet when he's on and he's firing. But for some reason, between whatever pastors of whatever church we were going to, or whatever family was letting us live with them and work on the plantation, there'd be some fallout. And I think because of what it boiled down to is my dad had that boomer mentality of, no, I'm not the one here to do the work. I'm the one that's here to know what the right work to do is. That's my job. He could never fully take that step into Bertaria of this superhuman effort that has to be put forth. And so it really just concentrated this idea of he knows best what's for America, which led to, us never having any stability of any kind all growing up, and eventually the marriage deteriorated. and they had 7 very brilliant kids. All the kids are above 130 IQ, except one. So that's pretty good odds. So now my dad's having to live with I tried to raise my kids as bears, but now most of them are pure Babylonians, and they're working their hardest to justify and make Babylon great again, just to prove my dad wrong about purity being the way to go. Purity and responsibility. But that's the thing. It's like they are pure and responsible people, but it's like they're using their purity and responsibility to try to make Babylon great rather than trying to secede from it. And so my dad's watching, and he's like a good boomer. He's like, we went to the moon when we needed to go to the moon. We can solve the usury and pedophilia problem. Well, us boomers can, okay? Now, we know about all the conspiracies now. We know the CIA is running Antifa. We know the CIA runs all the KKK groups. We know the CIA is both sides. We know that they're the Taliban and they're the American Army at the same time. But who's the CIA? Well, the CIA is the boomer. I'm the CIA. This is my dad's mentality. When he's really feeling himself, he's like, I'm the one feeding them the right information, and they've got to just trust the plan. They've got to have this Antifa white supremacy and black-white thing going on. They've got to have this Taliban and democracy thing going on. But trust the plan. It's me and God and Trump. And the truth of this, the thing that makes you want to beat your brains against the wall is like, yes, of course, universally there is a plan that must be trusted. If you're going to have any sanity, any equilibrium in life, you've got to trust God's plan. Absolutely. But then to not do anything but say that there is a plan and you're the one that God's working through to manifest it, this is a bit hard to agree with. It does make for many good conversations, and I can say this pretty confidently that I think I have a better relationship with my dad than most people have with theirs. Just because he's reached levels of honesty where he's just like, I don't know. God's infinite mercy is all that I have. And when a man reaches that point and admits it to you, then you know that you've met him on a common ground. And a lot of people just never get to have that moment with their dad. And with my dad, it's like once a month. One week he'll call and he'll be like, the Jews and the pedophiles, they're outside. They're onto me. They're going to attack any moment. Where are you? Do you have fresh water? Do you have food? Can I come there? And then you got to talk him down. And then some days he'll call and just incomplete, I don't know what reality is. My kids, some of them will talk to me, some of them won't. The grace of God is all I've got right now. And thanks for at least having a conversation with me. Sometimes it's like that. And then sometimes he calls and he's just full. He's pure Q. He's pure Q. And he's saying, this means this means this means this means this. Do my decoder ring. And you're hearing wild information. And it's entertaining. It's great content. It's better Q content than any Q content out there. Because it's the original Q source. He is the Q. So that boomer attitude of we went to the moon, we can solve this problem too. In fact, we already have. The CIA is really just our brain working this whole thing out. That is the Q phenomenon. And so I'll end there. One more thing. Miss Yellow-Eyed Canine Bear. Thanks for listening to the videos. I'm sorry to hear about your husband, and you guys are in the hospice situation. So I'll be sure to pray for you, because hospice is no fun. I went through that with my grandpa, and it's really rough seeing the medical industry go from this place of pretending to try to care about your quality of life and keep improving it till you cross this line into hospice, and they're like, honey, we're just here to make sure you die in a way that legally satisfies all parties. Okay? And it's just very difficult. to see your loved ones be in that situation. So you'll be in my prayers, and everyone else keep doing good. And didn't cover what I wanted to, but I'll make it to the next one. Keep crushing. Love you all. Bye.